chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You need to hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
There we go. I always do that. My humble apologies. Wishing you a happy Wednesday. We're in the middle of the work week right here in the Cayman Islands. And welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold. There we go. And inspiration takes center stage. Yes, welcome to my friends and family near and far. It's good to have you with me again on this platform or whatever platform it is you're streaming us live on. It's good to be back with you. We're broadcasting from the beautiful Cayman Islands, yes, every Monday to Friday from 5 on till 7. And you can feel free to join in on the live conversation by calling 345-936-8255. Because we love you being a part of the show. Well, yesterday we opened a powerful conversation about the system, the engine, and it was titled The Truth. And today that conversation continues because it was that long and that informative based on, really? Australia. Good morning from Australia. Real Michelle Teresa. Hearts to you, my dear. Yes, but today we continue with that conversation. I want to thank you all for your feedback, even extending into today, because I think a lot of you were like, you listened to the program and you're like, oh, she's just dissecting an article from the UK. And then, Parliament went into almost 11 o'clock last night. Well, you know what? I want to bring everyone up to speed and share what sparked this discussion in case you missed it yesterday. And yeah, it did come from watching what's happening in the United Kingdom. And we know that our system here and how our parliament is the government is work. Their governance model is how we actually operate here. It's the same constitutional framework that we follow because we are a British overseas territory. We are a British territory, right? So that was sparked by this thing about 7 prime ministers in 10 years. And they looked into, and the commentators in the UK and even past politicians and even present ones, they're saying more and more the instability isn't personal or partisan. They're saying, and they're putting some of the blame on the structural, and they're calling it structural systemic. Now, the sign that an engine of government itself is under strain is what some of them are actually saying. And that even fell in more today. I'm seeing more that are saying it in other articles that are coming up in the UK. But when we look at it right here at home, we can't ignore that. Not because we are the United Kingdom, but because our politics is pretty much the same. So we're already seeing signs here that are similarly, and here at home, we're not having big headlines, that sort of stuff. But yeah, we did make it. I know the calls were going. There were WhatsApp messages, and people are saying, "Boy, you saw the parliament last night. It got heated and all that sort of stuff." But what was interesting is that the Honorable Minister of Finance, he got up addressing something on the floor of Parliament that aligned exactly to what we were saying. Somewhat, without calling it, delays, bottlenecks, public frustration, policy slowdowns, and even, rising expectations from both sides. And pressure is on elected leaders and pressure is on the civil servants as well. He didn't call it for what it was, but it aligned with exactly what we were highlighting from a total disconnected article, but what we're seeing playing out in the United Kingdom. And yes, we saw that of what he said last night, because, that was the first meeting of the 2026-2027 sessions as our own elected members, where they're debating key matters that are shaping our Cayman Islands, but they were actually debating the throne speech. And to see the Honorable Minister of Finance saying, colloquial terms, they are operating as FOMUS and that there are legislation and certain things need to change, it's playing out exactly as we were discussing yesterday. And I was, in one way, I mentioned to one of my supporters, one of you guys, who in a WhatsApp, I swear it's divine, because I was promoting yesterday's episode long before they even went to Parliament, but yet it aligned to play out, making it relative so that you can see what I was talking about without laying blame, without pointing fingers. It was just a good way to prove, hello, if we don't be careful, this could cause a serious breakdown right here. So today, my friends, it's a matter of just wrapping up where we left off yesterday, because we're going to continue with the conversation. And again, not to point fingers, not to dramatize anything, but to understand exactly how the system operates and how, the engine that drives it, and the truth we must confront if we want a government that can meet the demands of modern Cayman. It's playing out right here. So please remember, though, that the views expressed by callers and online commenters are their own and not those of Bridge Media Limited and its affiliates, the Sabrina Speaks Show, or the host. Now, this program is for general information only and not a substitute for legal, medical, financial, or professional advice. And all participants are reminded to speak responsibly and respectfully. Any content that is defamatory, discriminatory, unlawful, or harmful is strictly prohibited and will not be tolerated. Now, listener participation implies acceptance of the disclaimer. And as I said, 345-936-8255 is the number to call to join in on the conversation. On that very same number, you can WhatsApp me, and we will take your WhatsApp messages that remains anonymous throughout this show. But we love you being a part of this conversation. I'm all tangled up here for some reason. Yeah, we love you being a part of the discussion. It doesn't make me feel so lonely. But I really do like all of the comments that are coming in. Some of them are very long, though. So be cognizant of that, the length, and we want to try to cover as much as we can here. But make sure you continue to like, follow, and share the page with your friends, and so that you're always notified and never miss an episode of Sabrina Speaks, as we continue to build this space in this community, one episode at a time. You know how we do it here on the platform, because we got to make sure we got to make sure that we tell you what's happening with the weather, because I see the Ministry of Health has even given a little warning. But stick and stay with me. Tell your friends that we're live, and we want to hear from you as well this evening, just in case you watch the proceedings. I'm a little behind, to be honest, so I'm catching up very late on the parliamentary proceedings. They're right now are on break. They started back at 2. They ended in short order, and they'll be resume at 5. I'm of the belief that they attended a funeral. So yeah, but they're back. Actually, should be back live now. Let's take a look at the weather for this evening. Compliments of our friends there at the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. The synopsis and the weather forecast for this evening into tomorrow is calling for a few showers that are expected tonight as moisture continues to affect be affecting us from the north across the area. An upper level trough could result in isolated thunder. A tropical wave is expected to be in the vicinity on Thursday and is expected to pass to the north of the area without much fanfare. However, the presence of the upper level trough could enhance limited moisture in the area, and a few showers and isolated thunder is in the forecast for Thursday. However, the forecast for tonight is calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers overnight and along with thunder. Temperatures will fall to the low 80s and winds will be east 5 to 10 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. The forecast for tomorrow is calling for partly cloudy skies with cloudy spells and a 40% chance of showers and thunder. Temperatures will rise to the low 90s degrees Fahrenheit with a heat index of near 99. Winds will be east to northeast 10 to 15 knots and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. There will be a high tide this evening at 7:39, a low tide at 1:48 tomorrow, and another high is expected at 6:43. Sun will set this evening at 7:05 and sun will rise tomorrow morning at 5:50. Now, the outlook is calling for another tropical wave that is expected to be in the area on Friday, and a plume of Saharan dust intrusion is expected. Therefore, a dust alert will be in effect from Friday. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's your weather forecast for the Cayman Islands for tonight into tomorrow, and just giving you an outlook of what's to be expected. But we got more on that coming directly from the Ministry of Health and Wellness in this broadcast. Now let's take a look at what's making local news this evening. We see where the first meeting of the 2026-2027 session of Parliament continues today, Wednesday, the 24th, with the third sitting began at 2. Now, government is set to answer a series of opposition questions covering banking, infrastructure, traffic, and roadworks, and along with immigration. Now, members will also resume debate on private members' motions calling for accelerated implementation of the Residential Tenancy Act, a key issue in a wider housing discussion. A private member's motion from opposition MP 𝗦𝗯𝗿𝗀 calling for the personal duty-free allowance to rise from $500 to $800 received unanimous support in Parliament yesterday. Now, Government Minister Nicholas da Costa signaled that further increases may also be considered, with the final figures expected as soon as Cayman heads into the busy summer travel, and making sure that can be done by July, if not earlier. We also have other local news this evening that the Ministry of Health and Environment and Sustainability, together with Public Health Department, is advising residents to take precaution as Saharan dust moves across the Cayman Islands. Now, the National Weather Service has issued a dust alert for Friday, the 26th of June through Sunday, June 28th, with reduced air quality expected from Friday into Saturday. Now, officials are urging the public to limit outdoors, keep windows closed, and run air conditioning on recirculate. Now, those with asthma or respiratory conditions should stay indoors much as possible and keep medications close at hand. Now, schools and workplace are encouraged to restrict outdoor activities, and residents are reminded to monitor official channels for updates. Now, we will keep you abreast of all of this and more that's happening as this continues to unfold, but definitely we're going to keep an eye on this for all of those persons suffering with allergies. We know how that goes. We see where the Cayman Islands Customs has clarified that passengers bringing items within their duty-free limit are not required to complete a declaration form. Now, travelers may also bring in up to $10,000 in cash or equivalents without declaring it. Anything above that must be reported, or it may be seized with possible penalties. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service carried out targeted traffic operations in the eastern districts on Sunday, responding to community concerns about speeding and unsafe riding. Around 11:30 a.m. in Northside, officers stopped a quad bike and arrested a 39-year-old man for driving while disqualified and multiple vehicle offenses. Now, he appeared in court on Monday. Later that evening, the Support from Air Operations Unit police tracked a dirt bike to an address in Boddentown, arresting a 20-year-old man on suspicion of similar offenses. Now, both motorcycles were seized and investigations continue. Parliament today received a life-saving automated external defibrillator gifted through YMCA Lifeline Cayman and an anonymous donor. Now, the Speaker of Parliament expressed sincere gratitude and thanked the Minister of Health for arranging the donation, noting its value to the safety of all who work in and visit the Parliament. Now, the Speaker added that while they hope and pray that the device will never be needed to be used, its presence provides an important layer of emergency preparedness. We see where the Bermudan Police Service is stepping up enforcement on e-bikes and electric pedal assist riders following a rise in reports of excessive speeds and dangerous driving. Officers says that the Road Traffic Act of 1947 applies to all vehicles on the island's road, including e-bikes, and they will be targeting offenses such as speeding, careless or dangerous riding, failure to obey traffic signals, and lack of due care and attention. Now, Bermudan police stress that these laws apply regardless of the type of bike or whether the rider holds a valid driver's license, and enforcement will be carried out consistently. In other regional news making headlines this evening, we see where the Gleaner reports that another group of Haitians were detained on Monday after being found on the grounds of the College of Agriculture, Science and Education in Paisley Gardens, Eastern Portland. Now, police believe that they are part of a larger group that landed off the coast of Snow Hill in Paisley Gardens shortly after midnight. Authorities continues to search the area as investigations into landing remains active. The American flag is once again flying over Kuwait City as the U.S. Embassy has officially resumed operation. The State Department confirmed the reopening on June 24th, marking a full restoration of diplomatic services in the country. Officials says that the move reflects strengthened stability and ongoing cooperation between Washington and Kuwait, with consular and embassy functions now back to normal. And over the pond, we see where Financial Times is marking 10 years since Britain voted to leave the European Union, calling it one of the most consequential political decisions in modern UK history. A decade on, the impact of Brexit remains sharply debated. Supporters says it restored the UK's ability to set its own laws and policy, while critics point to slower economic growth, higher trade barriers, and fewer opportunities for Britonians to live and work across Europe. Now, the discussion over Brexit's long-term legacy continues. In our business market today, we see where global markets closed mixed today, and the Dow Jones finished higher, edging up on strength in industries, while the S&P 500 slipped slightly and the NASDAQ ended lower as tech stocks retreated. Now, oil prices pulled back, with Brent and WTI both easing amid supply concerns and shifting demand forecasts. Regionally, the Jamaican Stock Exchange closed down modestly, reflecting softer heading trading activity across the Caribbean. Now, we will continue to monitor global and regional markets as new data comes in. So we will give you that update tomorrow as that continues to come in. There you have it, my friends, here on Sabrina Speaks. Welcome, welcome, one and all. That concludes this evening regional, local, and international news, making Sabrina Speaks headlines here for this Wednesday afternoon. saying hello to all of you joining us from wherever you're streaming us live from. We just want you to know that we appreciate having you here, and we are in for another treat again today. Yes, as I grab in all of these beautiful images here that you've shared with me this evening. And I'm telling you, you guys are really showing off on me. I got them coming from North Carolina. I even got some beautiful sweet treats because it is summer here in the Cayman Islands. Connie has blessed us with her images as well. And we want to take this opportunity to say happy birthday to all of those persons who are celebrating a birthday today. Our thoughts are with you, and we're sending you well wishes definitely on your special day, and for wishing you many, many more as well. All of you who are even celebrating wedding anniversaries, yeah, happy anniversary to you. Sending you lots of, you or something else, Harry. It's so hot over there. I don't know what you guys may have. But yeah, it is some beautiful images came in today. And even last night, we got some local tropical fruit that is also being shared with us as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that segment with you in a few minutes as well. But yes, happy birthday, happy anniversary. And if you're just celebrating life, you know what? We celebrate it with you. Every day above earth is a blessing. Above ground is a blessing. And we just want you to know that our thoughts and prayers are with you always. And we know that some of you are mourning the loss of a loved one. We don't want you to ever feel left out here on this space. It seems like we've been having so much of those that we have to, you're hearing them, some of them you can't even keep up with. And you're like, what? When did that happen? Well, we just want you to know that we are thinking about you, and our thoughts and prayers are with you as you navigate this time, for sure. So definitely our thoughts, our sincere condolences from all of us here on the Sabrina Speaks platform as you navigate this time. I just want you to know, into these community announcements, I want to remind you that tomorrow, Jaden Reed comes back home, and I'll share with, my sister, Sandra, who has this flyer in wide circulation. Jaden Reed is coming out, and after a standout NCAA season, and once again making Cayman proud, and the public is invited to join the welcome celebration tomorrow, June the 25th at 11:34 out at the Owen Roberts Airport Arrival Hall. Now, the public is invited to come out and show your support for one of our brightest and young athletes. That must feel amazing. The energy is building as he's getting ready to come home, and there's nothing better to have your own fans out there just cheering you on. It makes everything so, make you feel so accomplished, welcome, and embraced when you see your own out there. And also, yes, I want to remind you, because tomorrow is the 25th and it's Music for the Brain. June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. I want to remind you guys of this event that is coming up, and it's from 10 until 1 tomorrow at the South Sound Community Center for our seniors. And those are persons who are impacted by this. Again, it's Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and these activities are going on tomorrow. So that is tomorrow, and the next event is at the Georgetown Town Hall on Thursday, June 30th. But tomorrow is Music for the Brain, and that's at the South Sound Community Center. Just reminding you of that. And yeah, we got some of these delicious goodies to show you as well, to share, because it is Mango Fest, and we see where July 3rd, 6 to 9, there is a pre-launch dinner at the Catalina Hotel Indigo, $30 a person. I'm quite sure if you give them a call to find out if you can jump in on this experience to see if space is available. This should be a good event, I'm telling you. But you know what? You don't have to pay on the 4th of July, because out in town will be transformed with all things mango. Yes, that's the Cayman Islands National Museum on the waterfront. That's a free event, and that's going to take place on Saturday the 4th from 5 until 8 p.m. So we're looking forward to that. I may pop out there as well to indulge in all of that. So yeah, take that, Harry. That's what we got. That's what we got going on. Barbara G is in the house. Thank you for commenting and joining and commenting very early. Thank you so much, my love. It's always good. I look forward to all of you. And there's just a number. Shaka Zulu. Where is Shaka Zulu? It's been a while. It's been a while. I have not heard from Shaka Zulu. I wonder what's up. My bestest buddy. Oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah, anybody knows the history with me and Shaka. It has definitely evolved or blossomed into something else. But he gone MIA or she gone MIA. Whoever's behind a Shaka Zulu. Shaka, APB out for you. Are you okay? Just send us proof that you're good. Connie Bonnie is in the house. Yes, and I got your beautiful images for today, Connie. Yeah, girl. You shock? That's a fact. If you look back, you'll know what I'm talking about. Real Michelle, yes, she's saying good morning from Australia. It's already Thursday over there. Yes, so good. Thank you so much for joining us, even a day ahead. Tell me what's going to happen tomorrow since you're already into Thursday. Jeannie, yeah, boy, I don't know. It's divine. It's divine, Connie Bonnie. It's divine. Hola, Harry. Harry's here with us again. So good. And North Carolina Love is in the house. That's Marshall. That's my little name for Marshall, North Carolina Love. I'm going to let you see what North Carolina Love shared with us in a moment, but I got to bring you all up to speed because Harry's here. I want to make sure I give you guys a shout out. You said, okay, Harry, we'll come back to you. Let me flag that. Let me flag your questions here. Andrew is in the house as well. He says, good evening, Sabrina. Blessed Wednesday to you and the Cayman Islands and to you as well, my love. It's always good to have you on the platform for sure. Harry, I'm going to come back to you guys, to your questions and your concerns. Okay. So just bear with me. Damien is with us and he is saying, always looking for his words of encouragement and inspiration. Good evening, all. Mindfulness is the practice of focusing your awareness on the present moment, noticing your thoughts, emotions, and sensations as they arise without judgment. By seeing thoughts as passing events, it creates space between you and your reactions, allowing calmer, more thoughtful responses. It also shifts your attention from constant doing to simply being present. With practice, mindfulness, support, focus, emotional balance, and fuller engagement with everyday life. Thank you so much, Damien Henry. Always definitely got us locked and loaded. Yeah. I see you, Miss Barb. Good to have you here. Harry is saying he can't give us no flowers, which is an excellent segue into that. Because here we got Connie Bonnie sharing us some beauties for today. Yeah, that is Miss Connie's orchid, one of two beautiful images that she shared with us today. Look at those. Aren't they gorgeous? Aren't they just so gorgeous? Yeah, look at these. Two beautiful orchids that Connie shared with us. Let me tell you, this woman got a green thumb. It's almost envious. And then Donnie has shared her orchid with us as well. Yes, Green Valley Nursery. She has shared a beautiful image with us as well today again. And all the way hailing from North Carolina. Look, Marshall has shared this beauty with us today. Yeah, so it's everything in bloom. My content creators in bloom. So yeah, this one is hailing from North Carolina. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining in and just being a part of the creation. And look, this is from another lovely follower of the Sabrina Speaks. It's so good to have him participating with us, but he didn't just stay at flowers. He did not. Look at what he shared with us. Beautiful bowl of mangoes. So it's gone now from ornamentals. Yeah, remember Andrew warned me, and don't just grow ornamentals, things that you can eat. But look at this one. Someone shared a beautiful bowl of mangoes, and look at there, sea grapes. Now you know you're on an island. You know you're here when you see these. And I can remember eating these as a child. I can remember eating these as a child and folding the grape leaf and doing it almost like a snow cone cup. Now, this is Cayman. This is island life. Harry, see, you don't have this over there. But what you can do, what you said, Harry, well, let me put this up on the screen. Harry says you got rocks or something. Where is that comment? I have grass, weeds, and rocks. That's about it. Poor you. Poor Harry. Oh God, you're trying though. I must give you credit. You're trying. You're trying. You're trying, my love. You're trying to fit into this Caribbean thing, but it's now working. So you keep your grass and your rocks unless you find a very interesting rock that you feel it's worth sharing here in the Caribbean. We just got a lot of love for you. We just thank you for just being here. And it's good no matter what. Maybe you have a beautiful scenery from where you're at, Harry. We don't know. So it'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be good to see. Maybe you may have a scenery. Let's see. Get in on the fun, Harry. Get in on the fun. Alfred Reed, I thought I was your bestest buddy. You in competition, dude. I got them all over the world. That's a good thing. Alfred, competition is tight. Competition is tight. It's stiff over here, man. Oh my goodness. But welcome one and all. I usually like this. It breaks the ice. It sets the tone. And I know a lot of you, some you jump on for the news, you come back off, and then you'll come back to when the whole presentation is done, and you will just look at it. And then from that, you have your questions. Some of you are sidetracked. That's fine with football. I understand that. And you do admit that you're catching up now because of everything that's happening. Some of you are switching between here and Parliament. That's okay too. The good thing is you always come back. And I know that because you get your feedback and I get your questions. I even get persons asking for clarification or additional information. So that's fine. That's what it's all about in this podcasting world here. I personally don't take anything personal. I just love your feedback. You're not going to please everyone. That's the beauty of this space, but that's on them, not on me. I'm doing what I have to do here and making sure that we keep this informative. We make sure that we can deal with the topics and just build great relationships and friendships in this podcasting world, this virtual space that we have created here. Of course, the number is always here for you to call me once I'm live, 936-8255. We love hearing from you. And just, in case and to bring you up to speed, what you say, oh, Miss Joy. Hey, Miss Joy. Thanks for joining us. Good afternoon to you, my love. Live Happy is saying they are not mangoes, they're mangas. Get it right, mangas. Okay, Live Happy, mangas. Get it right. Oh, yeah. So, Harry, they're not mangoes. They're mangas. Okay, for all of my UK people, all of my people in Australia, even Germany, they're mangas. Say it right. You got to say it like a bear. When they are that beautiful. You're quite right. Oh, my God. Alfred is saying what? What you say? Like a song. I got holes in different area codes. Oh, dear Jesus. Oh, my God. Alfred, I can put you in time out. Just put it like this. I got options. You eat the top one. I think that's how the song goes. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at what you're pulling out on me this evening, Alfred. Harry is saying, I'll have you know our rocks here are the best rocks in the world. Well, whatever it is, if it's a beautiful view, send them through, my love. We welcome them anytime. But for you did. You eat the top one. I got options. Blup, blup. It's all good. It's all good. All of you. Well, welcome again to Sabrina Speaks as we get along here. 5:35. Oh my God, we got through all of that in record time and we still were able to have a little chuckle. That's what's good about here. And as we head into today's discussion, and I just want to again thank you for tuning in and settling into today's conversation along with me as we pick up somewhat where we left off yesterday. I just want to let all of you know from the bottom of my heart how much I appreciate you all being here. You tuning in, even sometimes you're late to class. That's okay. The mere fact that you still show up means a lot to me. And it's how we continue to grow here. But yes, we're continuing with the powerful discussion that started yesterday, that began, and we had that title as The System, the Engine, the Truth. And a lot of you understood the metaphor. And based on the questions that were coming in, I'm so happy that you were able to grasp exactly the in relation to what's happening in the United Kingdom and what's happening here. And looking at how the pressures we're seeing in the United Kingdom's governance model are beginning to echo in quieter ways across the Westminster-based systems, including right here at home. And for those of you who looked at yesterday's proceedings, especially two, I wonder if I can upload that. I wonder if I can. Oh, I don't know. It's long. The part 2 of yesterday's proceedings, where the Minister of Finance, Honorable Rawston Anglin, got up to speak, and they were debating the Troon speech, and he was actually doing his contribution and yada, yada, yada. And he made a profound observation that he felt would have come. And in not so many words, he was pretty much reiterating what yesterday's episode was talking about. And I just smiled to myself because, like I said, after the show, I went downstairs and I was playing catch up. So I didn't know that they were even still in Parliament. That was minutes to 8 after 8. So I stopped where I was at and I looked at the proceedings almost to the end, and oh my God. Yeah. It was quite interesting. I say, oh my God, only because I was like in shock that it actually aligned with what I was trying to say here in the discussion, in the presentation, in words, but it was playing out on the floor of Parliament. And here I am saying, wow, they're displaying and not saying what they should say because there are protections around how you say things, diplomacy. The world is watching. I even heard the Honorable Premier said that. The world is watching. So they're very guarded with their words, but it all aligned with exactly what we were saying and appearing as though they don't want to call it as it is, because there are ways of saying things, doing things, but we have a bigger responsibility to protect the reputation of this country. And also you have to be cautious that the very machine, you don't want that to backfire on you, but you got to own up in a mature stance, where there are faults, where there are flaws, and where things can be improved, because without addressing the elephant or elephants in the room, we're seeing where there's discord, there's personal attacks, there is public frustration, and then there's just a slowdown in everything, and that could have serious international damage and implications. So I encourage you all to go back to yesterday's sittings. You can look on it, YouTube, and it's dated. And what I love, GIS, kudos to you. You got the date. You got part 1, 2, and 3 of the parliamentary sittings. And I'm happy to say that. It's easier to find them if you go on YouTube. And you can just scroll down. He speaks after the member from Georgetown Central, and he addresses the Parliament there on it. And it was amazing, what he contributed, specific to exactly what we're continuing today. So yes, it's quite interesting, and it's just making sense. It also validated the point where I did the disclaimer, saying, please don't think it is political. It is not personal. It's not finger pointing. It's not blaming civil servants. It's not blaming politicians. It's not blaming, any administration. It's honestly just painting the picture so that we can educate each other, be able to identify certain things and say, hold up. Yeah, how can we avoid what's going there, what's happening? And it's so much easier to see when things then are attacked personally instead of looking at the issue, because educating your public, then the demands, needing it now changes if you understand the flow. how it works behind the scenes. So, you know what? Let's finish up. And I want to hear back from you, to be honest with you. I want your feedback on this. And it would just make so much sense if you all would just try and take the time to go back and look at these proceedings. And if I've said that before, but more so today, I am encouraging you to go back. If you watch yesterday's episode of Sabrina Speaks, and then you look at especially part 2 and 3 of yesterday, the 23rd of June's parliamentary sitting, you will be able to pick up and identify exactly what yesterday's episode, continuing in today, really, you'd be able to identify certain things, and hopefully it would clarify and give a better understanding of exactly what the government is up against, exactly what the opposition is up against, whether you're the official opposition or the independent opposition, because you got 3 different groups now in there. But it actually will highlight the issues, and you will also see the role even of the operational arm if you combine and go back and watch it. I can assure you it will all make sense. But I left off yesterday's episode of Sabrina Speaks, and I posed a question for you just catching up, and I'll come back to you, Harry, in a second. I was reading this question when I left you yesterday, and I said, the biggest question then is what the future will look like. Do members of parliament continue to represent out of fear of not stepping on toes of the operational arm of government, therefore continuing to lie to the voters, or do the people/citizens get educated of really how the systems work and then vote for leaders or groups of people willing to fix the system, address real issues, to level the play field? But having the guts to seek and make legislative, constitutional, and procedural changes, and also amendments that places responsibility on a more equal footing, with vision of placing the people, country, accountability top priority. At this rate, the future will continue to decline and the problem will continue. Educating the public may lead to better people being elected and to holding the operational and elected arm, including those at voting public, more accountable. I left that as a dangling into today based on not knowing exactly what was actually playing out while we were live. I had no clue it was playing out. Now, when you look at that, and based on some of the questions that were posed by Alfred, where do we go from here, to be honest with you? And that is really sits at the heart of every modern democracy that we're seeing playing out here, including right here, and also with our mother country and every other Westminster-style system. But do we keep pretending, looking at the systems now, not individuals, please, don't misunderstand the topic. We're looking at the engine. Do we keep pretending that the system works, or do we finally do a better job with making sure that the public is educated and fix the system in itself, right? Because I would tell you there's a big difference right now that we have all sectors of society showing more of an interest into the working arms and the operation of how government functions more recently than ever before. And I'm saying here in the Cayman Islands, that's a step in the right direction. Now, whether we want to own up to that or not, that social media has played a part on it, podcasts, talk shows, people are actually looking into more, having YouTube channels where you could go back on demand instead of having to listen to it on a radio. And you know how it is, just usually 2 or 3 days late. But now you can do this on demand. I must say we are making a step in the right directions. Now, at the core of it, this is the crossroads that we're at right now. Yes. And if nothing changes, what we're seeing unfolding around the world and in other countries, decline continues. We're seeing people getting more agitated. We're seeing people are like, they're not listening to us. We're still hurting. We're not getting anything. And they don't understand there is a process. Yes, it's slow. We even heard MPs yesterday saying the bureaucratic, the red tape, the different things that has to go through. Yeah, there is a process. Soon come. It's coming. We're doing it. Isn't that what we were talking about yesterday? People don't understand when they're hurting right now. When you need to access healthcare, they're blaming the MPs. They're blaming the government. They're blaming the leader. When in fact, there is a process. There are steps in place for a reason. And you're operating a 21st century demand under a 20th century type of working style. And it just can't keep up. And this is where you're seeing the frustration that is building and then the blame casting, when many a times it is just a system that needs to be improved. Because what we're seeing right now is that the public sees only the elected arm. Look at that. They don't see the operational arm. And worse, who breaks down how the operational arm, the engine, really works? And when people really don't understand the engine, they blame the driver, going back to the metaphor yesterday. And this, my friends, is what we're seeing becoming blatantly obvious. It creates a cycle then that the public blames elected leaders blame each other. Aha, if you look at yesterday's, you will understand what I'm saying. And the operational arm stays invisible. Look, we waiting for policy direction. Hey, Systemic problems then never gets fixed. It creates these cycles. You also have it creating a cycle where new leaders, new administration, can't wait for the 4 years, somewhere mid-cycle, they end up collapsing. Then the public anger, discord, confusion sets in, trust declines, and you're like, oh my God, they're not going to hold. They're not going to hold. We don't want that. They fail, we fail. And okay, fine, you change the driver. Guess what happens? The cycle repeats itself. And we're seeing that somewhat being some of the problem. Harry, I'm getting to you right now. This is also playing out in the United Kingdom. And it's showing its head right here in Cayman, because if you listen carefully to what our leaders are saying, standing orders need to be addressed, how Parliament functions, how the internal structures and getting policies and public consultation. They're telling you all of this and you're sitting down like, yeah, but I've been hearing this for 20 years. Hello. The cycle repeats itself. Yes, it does. It repeats itself. Let me go back and catch up with some of these comments here from Harry. Harry is saying, I have a question. Considering that almost all internal matters affecting Cayman is developed and except in exceptional circumstances, the UK sticks to the devolution settlement. Hold on. And how much does the UK politics trickle down to affecting Cayman? And the other question, and by the way, our weather has been awful. It hit 89 degrees. Oh, Lord, yeah. Okay, so going back to this question. Oops. How much does the UK politics trickle down to affect Cayman? Not blatant. Not blatant. You don't see it blatantly. It is the Westminster style in how we operate that we see sometimes trickle down. The governor is here, appointed by and is a representative of the king, paid from the funds and coffers of the Cayman Islands. That post holder does not interfere or shouldn't interfere in local governance, but there is close relationships between our local representatives and the governor. Now, there have been times, based on the personalities of persons holding the position of governor, that one may think, sometimes indirectly it is alleged, that some little movements can question of how far is one overreaching. Then you've heard another side where they're not doing their job and making sure that our elected arm is really doing what we're supposed to do in accordance with the Constitution, by the way, as Danny always says, that the UK wrote for us. So it all depends on who you speak to, Harry, that will determine. But there are certain agendas, there are certain responsibilities that come with that role. But the first thing is that they are the representative. They're the eyes, the ear for the United Kingdom. And, you know, at first, based on who you speak to, they'll be like, Cayman isn't first, it's the UK first. So it all depends on who you speak to. But directly, but what you guys have going on over there, you can't compare here with there because the size is totally different. There are just certain things, because we are a British overseas territory jurisdiction, we still answer to them. We're not an independent jurisdiction like Barbados and Jamaica, where we're independent. No, we're not. So there are just certain things that would need oversight in our spending, making sure that we keep in accordance to the framework that is set out and that sort of stuff. And that is where the governor oversees certain things. Still to this day, cabinet is chaired by the governor. The cabinet is not chaired by your premier. No, that was being talked about. To this day, our cabinet, the chairperson of cabinet here is, even though it's local, is chaired by the governor. So these are some modern things that is being discussion, but it needs political will and making sure how it's going to work. What is your take on that for modernizing? Do you feel your cabinet meetings needs to be chaired by the sitting premier? What's your take on it? Did you even realize that cabinet is chaired by the governor? National Security Council is also advisory council to the governor, who chairs that. That position is the case. And the premier sits on as a member, along with members of civil society and a member from the government, and a representative from the opposition is allowed on national security as well. And they're there now to give recommendations, of course, to the governor, and then any action items then is supposed to be channeled and feed down then to the cabinet that the governor still chairs. So it is quite interesting how it's set up, but one would think, okay, caucus is one thing, cabinet is another. Right now, the cabinet is chaired by Her Excellency, the governor, the post holder of that position. So it's very interesting how that is set up. Now, it was talks that it was going to change and it would be chaired by the premier, but that has not borne fruit yet, and we don't know whether or not that will make its head eventually. Harry is saying Brexit has been a total disaster. How is this a debate? How is this a debate? Brexit? Yeah, well, I think that is one of those that has raised its head after the fact, Harry, because people probably didn't understand what they were getting into. And I'm quite sure a lot of other jurisdictions is trying to avoid that. Let me try to keep up with these comments here. Wake Up is saying, if this heat continues to September, I will have to make some major adjustments. I study and work part-time and can't complete my work at home. It's really hot over there, you know, guys. Oh, wow. And I'm seeing where news coming out of there is that you guys built those homes for a different climate. And now with climate change, and we're seeing global warming, that you guys weren't built for that, for this new weather, for this new climate, and that there's serious works are going to have to be looked. You guys weren't prepared for this change. And that is another thing now that is making its way, because schools, housing, even the buses, those infamous big red buses, I didn't realize they didn't have air conditioning. And even in the tube, the trains, no air conditioning. And people are saying, wow, it's the body heat and all this sort of stuff. OMG. So I can understand the government over there has their work cut out for them as they fight this weather phenomenon that is obviously going to repeat itself, but it's also showing up where governments are actually not taking global warming and climate change serious. And here you have this heat dome over you guys in Europe, and you're grappling. A lot of you are not accustomed to these heats, and your infrastructure, the whole transportation system, you were built for a different climate, and it's just not the same anymore. So it's, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to you guys. Yeah, we have a boating lake, like you can't boat on, so that might be interesting. We have a boating lake that you can't boat on, so that might be interesting. How is that? And I'm seeing a lot of people, for some reason, is actually drowning. Is it that persons from the UK, you're an island, they don't normally swim because I guess the climate's so cold, so you'd have, oh, that is so sad as well. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind today?
I still can't believe that I'm not your best. Anyway, I'll settle for second best friend.
Pull a number and join the queue.
I done tell you why till I pull number 2. If I'm not number 1, I gotta be number 2. I'm not taking 3. So
oh God. A song comes to mind
anyway,
though. A song comes
which
to mind.
one, mine or yours?
No, man. This is
I
Jamaican.
got
No, this Jamaican artist about, and when they say 6, man, gotta guess who makes 7. Oh my God.
Dave.
Get to the point. How are you, my dear?
I'm okay. Based on the questions we raised yesterday, I like that you asked, where do we go from here, right? And I think for me, the answer is that Cayman has to move from place of complaint to understanding, and then from understanding to reform, right? Right now, many people, they know that something is wrong, but they don't know where the problem sits. So they'll blame the minister, or they'll blame the premier, or they'll blame the civil service, or they'll blame the board, or they'll blame the voter. But if we don't understand how all those parts connect, right, then we just keep shouting at the wrong door.
And it then becomes personal attacks, which is what we're seeing playing out right now. Oh, one is just a blobber mouth, and they go to this and they go to that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're so bigger than this. You guys are not addressing the elephant in the room.
Right. So I think first, the public has to be educated on how government actually works. And I'm talking about both the elected arm and the operational arm of government. So if you'll indulge me, I'll try to keep it simple so people can understand, right? Parliament is where the country's laws are made, where they're changed, where they're debated, where they're approved, where they're repealed, that kind of thing, right? It's also where government spending is questioned and approved. So when people might say something, well, why don't they just fix this, or why they don't just do that? One of the first questions should be, does this require a law to change? If it does, then Parliament has to be involved. But Parliament doesn't run the day-to-day government, right? Members of Parliament, MPs, they don't personally run department. I remember a time years ago where if a member of the public, if a disgruntled member of the public wasn't pleased with a particular interaction with a civil servant, they would, write in. At the time it was MLAs. They would write their MLA, and then the MLA would get involved, and it led to a whole pile of things. All of that done now.
Correct.
MPs do not personally run departments, right?
Correct.
An MP can't just walk into a department and order a civil servant to approve something, or to hire somebody, or to ignore a law, or to skip a process. Parliament makes the rules. They ask questions. They debate issues. They approve money. And they hold government, the operational arm, to account. Cabinet is different. Cabinet is the main policy decision-making body of government, right? It's where the big direction is set. Cabinet decides the government's priorities. Cabinet says, this is the policy direction we want to go in. So, for example, housing, or, immigration, or education, right? So if Parliament is where the rules are debated and passed, Cabinet is where the elected government decides the direction of travel, right?
Mm-hmm.
A minister is, and I know you know all of this, Sabrina, this is for the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
A minister is the political head of a ministry, right? The minister is responsible for the vision. They're responsible for the policy, the priorities, explaining to the public and bringing matters to Cabinet and to Parliament. The minister should be able to say, this is what we want to achieve, this is why we want to achieve it, and this is the change we're asking government to make. But a minister does not personally control every operational decision, right? Like I said, they cannot just simply bypass a law. A minister cannot tell a civil servant to break procedure, right? They can't just hand out contracts because they want something done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So now you look to the chief officer, right? The chief officer is one of the most important people in the system, but I don't think many people in the public understand this role, right? The chief officer is the senior civil servant who helps turn the minister's policy direction into actual work, right? They manage the ministry from the operational side. They're the ones who deal with staffing, with budgets, with departments, delivery, internal systems, and making sure that government work is carried out properly. So in simple terms, the minister sets the political direction, but the chief officer helps run the machinery that delivers it. That means that if something fails, we shouldn't always ask only, well, what did the minister do? We should also ask, was the ministry able to deliver? Did the chief officer have the resources?
The pace
Was
for
the
delivery,
department too slow?
funding. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Was the law too restrictive? Was the process too complicated?
Bureaucracy,
Was
red
cabinet
tape,
clear?
mm-hmm. Different steps.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Was cabinet clear? Was Parliament required to change something? Right? Then there's the civil service. The civil service is the operational arm of government. These are the people who run departments and they process the applications and they manage public services and they give advice and enforce rules and they keep government going even when politicians change. That is why governments are built for continuity, right? People elect people choose, people elect their representatives based on promises and change, but governments aren't built for rapid change like that. Governments are built for continuity.
Mm-hmm.
The elected government may change, but the civil service remains. Now, that can be a good thing because the country needs stability,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't want services like schools and police and immigration and planning and customs and healthcare and, you know, they can't stop every time there's an election,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the problem is if the civil service is too slow, too cautious, too under-resourced, or too comfortable with the old ways of doing things, then new political promises get stuck inside the old machinery, right?
And those promises can't be delivered because sometimes if you've never worked as a civil servant to have an inkling, or if you haven't been following politics, you have no clue of putting yourself up for office. You go out there and you make these grandiose promises. You're selling yourself as a promise to the people with not having a clue about the machinery. And sometimes you put your foot in your mouth because you're making all of these promises you can't deliver. You may end up with a group that's not a priority. You may, once you get elected and the guts are open to you, then you're like, holy smoke, I can't do this. How am I going to go back to the people and say, look, this is the reality of where it is. And I know I promised this and I promised that. So that's where you get the superficial stuff. Not to tell you that roads don't need fixing, not to tell you that we don't need drainage system, but the big grandiose plans can't be delivered because it's a different ball field when you get in there.
Mm-hmm. And then we have boards, right? That's another part of government that people often overlook.
And you don't interfere, or you're not supposed to interfere as the minister. You're not even supposed, unless you're invited to those boards, you need to stay away. You cannot influence board members. You cannot influence decisions of the boards. You give your recommendations, you give them the marching orders that aligns and supported by your colleagues in caucus and approved sometimes in cabinet, but you're not supposed to be seen at any of these board meetings unless you are invited. Mm-hmm.
And also, like so when people say that, well, why doesn't ex-minister, right, just fix it? Sometimes the answer is, just simply the decision sits with the board.
But then that's being seen by the public as weak.
Under a law.
They could be even accused of making excuses. They could be looked at as being weak.
So, hello?
Yes, you're here.
Oh, sorry. It sounded like you cut off for a minute. What was the last thing you said?
I said they could be seen as though they're weak or that they're just making excuses to someone who does not understand the role. And this is why it is important to just be open and honest with your electorate, with the people, of really what powers you have and what powers you don't have. But you see that little thing called ego? That's going to be a lot of the demise.
Well, and like these boards, they often operate under very specific laws.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is that the boards might have legal powers that not even a minister can override.
Correct.
Right?
But they can influence, just presence, intimidation. What you say is intimidating. And a lot of them are politically appointed, which is making its way now, whether or not some of these boards should be actually politicized.
Well, I was just going to say, right? I mean, that's why, board appointments matter. Who sits on these boards matter. Their experience matters. Their independence matters, right? Conflicts of interest matter. Performance matters, right? If boards are making major decisions for the country, then the public needs to understand how they are appointed,
mm-hmm.
what they control, and how they are held accountable,
mm-hmm.
right? Then there's the issue of procurement. Right? And for those who don't know what procurement means, procurement simply means the rules government has to follow when it buys goods or services. If they're building things, if they're making repairs, consultancy, road work, major projects. It exists to protect. It's supposed to protect public money, right? It's supposed to stop corruption, favoritism, sweetheart deals, and contracts being handed to friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
There might be some who say, well, why we don't just get rid of procurement, too many regulations. I don't think you want that, right? Procurement can slow things down, right? So let's say...
but it's there as a gatekeeper to filter so that it's not anything biased.
Right. So let's say government buys something, right? It may need a business case. Then it may need funding approval. Then, specifications come in. Then they have to put it up to tender. So there's a tender process. Then they have to evaluate it. Then there's a legal review.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to approve the contract. Then they have to report. All of that takes time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, then the question is, like how do we make that process transparent? How do we make it fast enough to deliver?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then I think also what we need to understand is what requires a law change. Some things can't be fixed by speeches, right? A minister can put out a press release, but some things just cannot be fixed by a minister alone. A current law says something has to be done a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Then government may need to amend that law. So what that means is a bill has to be prepared, and then it has to be approved, and then it has to be debated in Parliament, then it has to be passed, and it has to be assented to by the governor,
mm-hmm.
and then it has to be gazetted before it becomes law. right? So if people want real change, and I'm not just talking about Cayman, I'm talking about like what's going on in England now with the whole Keir Starmer thing, but I mean Cayman included in that, right? If people want real change in areas like immigration and planning, you know, what have you, right? Or even if it's the power of boards and departments and that kind of thing, you know, you need to ask, does the law need to change?
Mm-hmm.
And if the law needs to change, then we should ask elected representatives, what law are you proposing to change? When are you bringing it? What problem will it solve? Who benefits? Who may be hurt by it?
Mm-hmm.
How will it be enforced? Right? And let's not get started on constitutional changes, because that's even deeper than a normal law change.
But the what is missing from all of this is the importance of people being aware of what is happening, understanding it all at the end of the day. Because if we have lost so much interest because we're just fatigued, we're frustrated with the whole system, we're not seeing the immediate impacts of the promises. And I heard the premier saying, you know, they're only 5 months, pretty much 6 months into their budget. A lot of people don't even understand that. They're saying, what do you mean you're only 5 months into your budget? When you guys got elected in April of 2025, what do you mean? Again, they may have gotten elected in April of 2025, but until December 31st, 2025, whatever was remaining from the previous administration of funding, unless they had additional borrowings or emergencies, that was monies from the last election cycle. You understand? Their budget cycle. This government budget for what they presented in the strategic policy statement, their funding for what they promised this country only kicked in January 1st. So you can make promises, you can say all that you're going to do. If it is not funded until January of this year, then technically for true, they're only they're just 6 months in their budget. So you're like, so are you telling me we wasted from April to December waiting for their year to actually kick in? Somewhat, kind of. But under the financial, how the system works, here we're going with this, how the system works. There are provisions under finance, which is where we have Mr. Ken Jefferson, that is a very important player in the survivability of funding and showing the true figures. He have to hold it together for an incoming government that has made all of these promises during a campaign to cover that gap in between, let's say May, after official swearing in, May and December 31st. Because technically, they're just trying to get their ducks in a row. They're trying to see what the priorities are going to be and all of that. And all of that time, yes, continuity goes, but that government has delivered the marching orders for these boards, for these statutory authorities, because guess what? You got a new government. Priorities change. And then they have to be funded. There is not necessarily continuity, which in many cases can cost a country millions of dollars because there is no continuity in a government. The priorities change. That could be environmentally, it could be political agenda, and then they have to be funded. But the key takeaway here is from April to December, they're operating on funding from a previous government. It's not so bad. If everybody else gets reelected, then you can pick up where you left off. You understand what I'm saying? Because, and especially if you get back your same ministries, but if you're getting a whole new ministry, maybe you're a first-time minister, you are clueless. You've never been there before. So all of that time, you're actually trying to learn it, trying to give this, and all of those promises that you made and people don't understand the systems, they're coming at you. So
can I say something?
Sure.
And can I say something, especially for like the first-time ministers and that kind of thing? I mean, I'm not getting involved politically, and I'm not making any. I want to be clear here, right? I'm not making anything to criticize anyone or anything, but if you understand how the machinery works, and especially when you have a first-time minister, if you have a particular portfolio that was given to you, and you have particular chief officers who don't like you for whatever reason, right? I just gotta wait you out for 4 years.
I think Harry said something like that. Here it is. Harry made a comment. But the civil service also known that in 4 years you probably won't be there, and so their idea is we will keep doing it our way, because if we are end up, I hate to think like that. I hate to think like that because they're supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to be there to carry out the wishes. But caller, you have highlighted some things as well that we have heard, that we have alleged. It has been alleged that the system just slows down. This is by no means, but I mean, it speaks in productivity. It speaks in the pace. And then some genuinely because they do not have the skill sets in the ministries in order to skill sets, manpower, and I guess processes.
Funding.
Yeah, funding in order for them to deliver at pace. But the biggest thing is really and truly, there's just so much layers on top, layers of checks and balances that 1 week, I always said this as a minister, your 1 week equals to a month to a minister. Your 1 month is equivalent to a year to a minister. Your 1 day delay is equivalent to a week. And I don't think they're understanding, or they cared not to, because like Harry's comment says, we wait you out. And a lot of the times it's a lot of misunderstanding, because you may be sheltered as a civil service, but you don't understand the role unless you sit in it. And I can tell you, a lot of those delays, red tapes, bureaucracy can cost someone their seat. That is no fault of theirs. And guess what? That's on them if it's personal, because all they're doing is actually hijacking the people of the country, and they're supposed to be serving everyone. Am I not right?
Well, anyway, I just thought that I would give him a little 2 cents worth.
No, that was more than 2 cents, my love. Live Happy is saying, it should be enough. It shouldn't be enough to run just because you're passionate. There needs to be a real knowledge and certification behind it before receiving green light to run for office. Well, then the elections law would have to change. The elections law would have to change. Go ahead.
No, but Sabrina, you see, it goes back to what you're driving home. If the people do not understand the system, they can be managed by promises. All right. So when the people understand the system, then they can start demanding proof. You're promising this and you're promising that. All right. But I know that this, like, if you were to get in, and if you were to get this portfolio, this is how the system works, and this and that and da 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 da. So I know that you're promising me something that you can't cash. Right? How are you going to cash this check that you're writing?
But it goes back again to just communicating. It just being honest with it's fine. There is a honeymoon phase though of any elections and any outcomes that the public, the country, constituents will say, look, you knew, and based on the rapport that you have developed, let's say during the campaign stage, a lot of people are understanding. But when you see that 1 year has passed, when you see that 16, 17 months has passed, oh no, baby. Then it's almost starting a new cycle for campaigning again. And lots of times that's when the machinery of those broad outcomes just start to move. Almost 16 months after the fact.
I'll say this. Let me say this. Yes, we want to hold our elected parliamentarians to account, but folks, remember too that leadership is a hard job. Okay, it's not easy, and you you have to work with the cards that you're dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you know, it's like coming in the middle of a dominoes game and you're picking up somebody else's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So pray for your leaders.
Yes.
Hold them up. While you're holding them accountable, lift them up. Because it's not an easy job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is not.
Good
Oh,
night,
by
Sabrina.
far, it is not an easy job. And like what 𝗏𝗲𝗃𝗍𝗃 is saying, someone jumping up and run and not having a clue is the wrong person for the job. Yes, they might have a good heart, but they are not ready. 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗍𝗃 also says, true caller promising something that you know nothing about, that could pass for deception when, yeah, it could. So we get in the comments coming
But
in.
that's where you as the voter, but you as the voter, like we as the voters have to, that's where we come in, right? Because if you're electing somebody that you know not fit for office, or you're electing somebody that you know are promising things that you can't, that they can't deliver, I mean, ultimately who's responsible? The people always get the government they deserve. You know, try to maybe come off this phone, yeah. Bye. Bye. Listening.
Okay, number 6. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it is quite interesting. Again, and I thank you for the feedback. I thank you for the commentary. And we see where we got the comments coming in as well online. And let's maybe pick up. I hope I didn't think. Darlene, good evening. Harry is saying, well, from the civil service perspective, let's imagine minister comes in, redesign the whole ministry in a way he wants to run. The civil service is thrown in chaos for 6 months out of a 4-year term. That's 1/8 of their term gone as soon as they do. That once every government will impact them to do it. And the civil service don't like upending how they work. And don't get me wrong, if a minister really push it and force it, it would happen. Okay. Harry says, but I'll tell you that the civil service would despise that minister. And even if not on purpose, that minister would be screwed from the point forward, because if the civil service don't like you, you're not getting anything done, is how what Harry is saying. And Harry also says, research says government has the most goodwill and is most popular around 3 months into their term. Interesting. Yeah, because you're still on the campaign, you're happy, you're celebrating that your government has gotten in. And even then, you know, people have probably accepted their team is not there, but they have to give it for stability of your country and all that sort of stuff you got to do. So yeah, I did that one. But yeah, there's just limitations that a minister can do within a ministry, and you can work very closely with your chief officer and hope that they actually have a liking for you, or they can remain diplomatic and say, okay, this too shall pass, but at least I am one of principled enough that I will work with you because I know that you're here for a bigger role. You were duly elected. I have to work with you. And I'll do what we can do based on the resources that you fight for your ministry and funding, and we'll deliver as fast as we can. You just need to hope for that. But John Public doesn't really see it that way all the time. They just don't understand. Harry says, I also think a big problem is that soon as a politician goes after the civil service, people don't like it. But they don't even have to go after anyone. They're just asking for deliverables on what they've promised their people, and it's just taken out of context. We know the power of social media. We know the power of the rumor mill. And it could be something that just innocent, that you're really, truly working to deliver on the promise of your sitting cabinet, your government, and your constituents. And it's just taken out of context because you're wanting to get things done. You have a limited time, and it's just totally taken out of context. Now, I did manage to download yesterday's proceedings so you can kind of understand. If you hear that, it's thunder rolling in the background. Oh God, I'm hoping to pray. I'm hoping and praying we do get some rain. Did I see that somewhere where somebody says it's like the rain is coming? I think it was Ralston that said, Honorable Ralston Anglin says, promises are made in the thunder, it's dark, and the thunder and not a drop of rain. I heard that and whatever. Yeah. Anyhow, because if we are being honest, people in the general public view politicians as corrupt or liars or unless or in it for themselves. Yeah, that comes with the label. And that brings us to another part. We're seeing more and more persons are saying, I'm not getting into this. I'm not going to go into it because they come after my family. They come after my business. They come after my family who have business. And I'm just not going to go there. And that is a pretty sad, because we have a lot of persons that have the potential, would do very well in the political role, but have chosen to stay away. You're having persons now even refraining from being, wanting to even be associated on boards or councils because of exactly how it's becoming politicized and how they then are being exposed for giving back to their communities by serving on these boards and councils. So we're having an apprehension of persons, and some of these boards and councils do take up a lot of time. If you do not have an understanding employer, worse, if you're self-employed, you could be losing hours and hours, sometimes days, by giving back of service, only to have something go wrong or a misunderstanding in the public's demeanor, and then you're just drawn through the mud by giving of service. So this is quite interesting that we're seeing people now kind of stepping back. I'll support you, but I'll support you from behind the scenes. I don't want nobody to know that I'm even associated with this group or that individual. But yeah, I'll do anonymously. I'll do this because they're protecting either contracts, they're protecting their business, they're protecting because they themselves are going through another cycle every 4 years. If one, you don't get elected, or if your party is not the leading government. And that is actually what's happening right here at home. That is the truth. Let me see if I can pull this up on screen for you to see if we can find exactly where Mr. Anglin, Honorable Ralston Anglin, was. I hope this is the right one. Oh God, please make it be the right one. Let's see. Let me pull it across. I think it was 3. He started at 3. I got a right one. There we go. Please bear with me. I am going to, okay, I want to make sure you guys hear this. We may get a little ending of what?
Ask for much.
Oops.
Tens of thousands of dollars every day.
We're going to start
many
from there.
Caymanians who are going by the penny pinching. So pennies to them is a lot of money for other Caymanians. Mr. Speaker, with that being said, thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any Minister of Finance and Education?
This is yesterday's proceedings. This is not live.
Mr. Speaker, today is certainly one of those days that remind me that as parliamentarians, one of the things that we have to be very clear and conscious about is how we actually structure our business. Mr. Speaker, today, in my opinion, is a day for every one of us to reflect at, in my opinion, the work that we have to do to ensure that we are thoughtful about standing orders, we're thoughtful about our legislative calendar. Mr. Speaker, in a way, I feel sad for the opposition because they've been put in a position to respond. the truth is, Mr. Speaker, collectively, and this isn't just them, the government, and yourself, and the staff of the Parliament alone, it is, or separately, this is all of us. We need to be very clear about what sessions ought to happen in a political term and how they should be structured. Mr. Speaker, I take the point that the two of us discussed privately a few days ago with the view that a new session of the Parliament ought to be accompanied by a throne speech. When we take the behind of a person and put it on top of her head, we wind up with an 𝗏𝗡 situation. And today is that day. The government delivered everything that the deputy leader of the opposition called for in November. We developed a strategic policy statement that was delivered in October. We came back to the Parliament. We set out all of our plans. We set out our entire legislative agenda. We set out our entire budget agenda. We passed the budget. 6 months later, we're here having heard a throne speech that spoke nothing in depth to what is happening and what the plans of the country are. We cannot have our Parliament deliver to our people a scenario where we lay out our plans and those plans are not accompanied by a speech from the throne at that time, ministry by ministry, with a high-level summary of what our agenda is. So, Mr. Speaker, in my mind, we have two options. We're either going to tie sessions of Parliament to our budget cycle, or we're going to move the state opening to match up and line up with the budget and address. Because the two are completely misaligned here, Mr. Speaker, today. It's completely misaligned. And we're not doing the public ourselves any justice, and we're not doing the public, who we're here to serve on their behalf. This is their house. I am simply here on behalf of the people of West Bay North. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, and I can tell all members of this House, the average person from West Bay North, if I were to go to them tonight, when we're finished here, and say, if you listen to the House, what did you think of it? I can almost guarantee you, any of them that keep up with parliamentary procedure are going to say, but hold on, you had the budget address a few months ago. What are you all now talking about? Mr. Speaker, I can also share, and I've discussed with my colleagues, the throne speech was not approved by Cabinet. The governor felt obligated because she was asked to provide a throne speech. There was a light overview of where we are, and that's what was given. So in all fairness from my standpoint, it is difficult to me to be overly critical of the response that comes from the opposition because of what we have given to the Parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, we have seen at this stage at least 5 to 6 major reform areas required in standing orders. Major reform areas. Let me use one. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition, quite rightly, bragged about the number of private members' motions they brought. Right now, we have a set of standing orders that once we appoint a government non-minister as a parliamentary secretary, bans them from bringing a private member's motion. Mr. Speaker, our legislative journey and our parliamentary journey and how it's developed has been very, very interesting for me to have sat back and seen it from 12 years ago. Mr. Speaker, let me remind you and the House and the wider public of what I call the glorious years. The glorious years where I sat and you sat way before me, Mr. Speaker, when you were first.
Sorry, I just want to pause it right here because what it actually is highlighting is some of the ills, some of the same things that we're pointing out of changes. And here you are seeing, now it gets more interesting later on into the evening where one is pointing out exactly what happened behind the scene. The governor was asked to do a throne speech. He cleared it up. It was not approved by cabinet. And she delivered a throne speech based on something that pretty much was done from the end of last year, just before they were delivering and to start their budget. But again, ask FOMAS, because the things and times that how they're operating, as you all have alluded to, is not changing with the pace of reality that we're facing right now. He actually goes into speaking exactly about just that, because the private member's motion that was put forward for the duty and for the increase from 500 to 1,000 to 800 and all of that, apparently that was discussed about from February within the government. Miss Julie Hunter actually wanted to put that motion forward, but because of her being a parliamentary secretary, the law does not allow her to put in a parliamentary to bring a motion before the House. She's blocked. But yet, that then came about, and it was a private member's motion brought and filed to the Parliament by then our Georgetown representative, Ms. Perlina, and of course it would have received unanimous support. So these are some of the things that is slowing down. Now, you know how that would make that member from West Bay feel as though she's useless, when in fact she was tooting that horn, blowing that whistle. Look, summer is coming up, Easter is here, let's do this. But because she was appointed as a parliamentary secretary, the law precludes her from bringing a parliamentary motion. Now, there's a lot more to be said, and I don't want to bore you all with that. And I'm hoping that I would be able to be flexible enough to drag it across, because I know if you all not listening, you ain't going to listen to this to try to pick up the key points that I'm trying to say. But even when the Honorable Ralston does come back, and he does acknowledge why the opposition would respond the way they did, because they're debating the throne speech, and they have a right to point out some of the things. And he did make mention of exactly why they would come, but understanding how it works, they seized the moment to be the role of opposition. They saw a gap and they capitalized on it. They highlighted things that weren't said, that were promised, whatever the case may be, whether or not they knew exactly, well, okay, we're here to debate what was delivered on a throne speech, but what about this? What about that? And of course, opposition is opposition. They do what they have to do. That's standing orders. They debate as opposition is supposed to do. And this is why it's so important. This is not taking sides. This is not going against or going for any side. This is just pointing it out to you exactly how the system works. One can criticize that the opposition is theatrical or whatever the case may be. That's opposition. If you create a space and an environment for them to come at you, unfortunately, they're going to come at you because, yeah, they got time. They're opposition. So what then you now hear from the government side is we got real stuff going on. We got a job to do. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing. We're managing the ministry, and we're doing this, and we're doing that. Then the opposition comes back and say, but hold on, you got a whole ministry team. You got a whole ministry team. You got your chief officers, you got your speechwriters, you got your this, you got your that. We're out here on a whim. Again, you got to understand. You got to understand it to really pick sense out of nonsense of what's being said. But I implore you, I encourage each of you to go in there and watch yesterday's proceedings. not for the theatrics, because it became very emotional. It actually got a bit confrontational, and it goes into exactly what I'm telling you based on the presentation yesterday. They're coming after one another, and where is the country? In a balance. Coming after one another instead of improving the systems, funding it accordingly, and not making it personal, because at the end of the day, they're there to represent everybody. They're there to represent everyone. Andrew is saying the captain, premier of the ship, the country is the ship, is to make sure that the running of the ship and the crew, the ministry, operates efficiently and carries out its functions accordingly. The engine, being the ministry, I think in this case is a civil service extended, has to be maintained and oiled by the civil servants in the ministry, aka the oil man in the engine room, takes the heat off the pressure bone with the engine, born with the engine. If the oil man doesn't oil, the engine will stop running. You are quite right. So we're using this metaphor as a car and the engine only because this is exactly how we can just try to understand exactly the workings, the mechanism of how our parliament is functioning. Harry is saying, so the governor writes the throne speech? Yes, in this case, as what was stated here. And she's supposed to have actually asked and consult with the minister, definitely the Minister of Finance, but more so through the Premier. And then her team in her office would have at least probably get snippets, be it through the office of the Premier, what could be included in it. But again, you would have to listen to the entire presentation from the Honorable 𝗦𝗯𝗿𝗀 to really get a sense of what transpired. And then, of course, the opposition was told to debate what was said in the throne speech, which technically was already presented the end of last year. So it was, and I get what he's saying, but then another spin-off to what he's saying is that what should have been delivered is what they're working on, and the progress report on what was promised, but it didn't happen for whatever reason. And then that created a room then for the opposition to what is alleged of them stealing ideas from what the sitting government is working on. And they would bring a private member's motion to the floor of Parliament and outlining how much private members' motion they have brought, making it look like the sitting government is doing absolutely nothing. Yeah. And that in itself is bringing it to the point, but they're probably going to reject. That's what is being touted, that even though standing orders allow opposition to bring bills and private members' motions, if it is aligning with what the sitting government is already working on, then you, the public, needs to be educated. You may hear a private member's motion that it sounds good and it for the government to consider, but if the government already is working on it and is silent on what they're working on, you're not being updated with it. Yeah, it's creating this room for misinformation. And then you feel as though you're waiting and all you're hearing is soon come. And this is where these ministry spotlights that Sandra showcased, whenever they come on our platforms and you get an opportunity, once they make themselves available, they don't have to spill their guts. They just come and keep you updated as to what's happening. Because if they're saying, we're going to stop supporting these private members' motions, if we know that behind the scenes, this particular ministry is working on exactly what your private members' motion is putting forward to make us consider, when we know as a ministry, this government as a whole is working on it, we're going to reject. We're not going to support your private members' motion, because here is proof this is what we're doing. But if they're working on that and John Public doesn't know anything about it because everything is under lock and key and you're sitting there waiting and they're very, tight-lipped about certain things, what happens? Public gets frustrated. You guys are getting frustrated and you're saying you're doing absolutely nothing. Where is the transparency? So what could actually happen now is, even though private members' motions are sound, making sense, you could possibly see members of the government saying no when it comes down to the vote, because they are going to then be challenged to prove why they said no. And this, my friends, goes back to why it's important when these annual reports are being read, especially during the tenure of that sitting minister, that it's good whenever they go to Parliament that they give updates as to what's happening in their ministries. Because outside of that, they lose control of the narrative. They lose control of the narrative, and then opposition do their job. They're in opposition. Opposition is a government in waiting. So if they see, it's called strategy. It is called strategy. And if you could see them at that freight train, yeah, you said you were going to do this and said you were going to do that. Where is it? Soon come. You get an opportunity to have statements on the floor of Parliament, and you don't say a statement. A statement, once it's approved by the Speaker of the House, could give you, it doesn't have to be 2 hours. It could be 45 minutes. Just a quick overview and update as to what's happening in the ministry. And I know the last time we were sitting, this is what we were working on. My ministry team, the departments, says, this is an update on this. And this is a timeline that I've been given. That's all you want. Outside that, where there is silence, the opposition is doing their job. So I implore you, because this is long, it's over 4 hours. I implore you to go on YouTube and look for part 2 of yesterday's proceedings. You can watch and you can hear the minister, the representative from Georgetown, where he is definitely, it's a perfect example of him debating on what was said in the throne speech, and definitely taking advantage of all of the gaping holes that were there for him to be opposition for. And then, of course, as poised, eloquent as the Minister of Finance gave the financial impact and overview in his way, defended. He acknowledged why the opposition is placed in a precarious situation, but he also pointed out where things could have been handled differently as well. So I implore you to go and look at that for yourself, and let me know your feedback afterwards as well, please. So why did the governor not consult with the government in this case? They did, but it's clear. I can only go based on what's in the public's domain. Obviously, her team went off of the 1-year celebrations as to what the government pretty much was celebrating. And that's not hitting the heart and the core of what the national cry is. So it sounded a bit repetitive. And to say that why and why it wasn't approved by cabinet, I can't answer that, Harry. I don't know. But I'm quite sure there may have been some sort of consultation with the office of the premier, and the premier's office, of course, is a representative of the entire cabinet that he chairs, that he's responsible for. So that should be a clear lens and reflection of where the government is at the time. Now, if what is being said, that's now in the Hansards, is that they weren't consulted and it wasn't approved by cabinet word for word, then maybe there are bigger problems than we're thinking. We're processes, again, aligning with what we're saying. That the processes need to improve, because you wasted pretty much all of this debating time over stuff that is really past tense or not current information, and it created an environment that could have been avoided if it had taken a different road based on what the Honorable 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was saying. It was as FOMUS. So Live Happy is saying the problem is, see, the opposition is that when they were in power, they had no opposition. Oh, this is the first I see an opposition. So yes. And you see, we've forgotten. I Live Happy. I thank you for saying that. The problem I see is with this opposition is that when they were in power, they had no opposition. This is the first time I see an opposition so outspoken. Again, yeah, someone who knows standing orders, they can have a field day in the position of the opposition. They don't necessarily, they can point out the flaws. Not all the time they need to have the solutions, but they're opposing it because of feedback that they're getting from their people. That's what an opposition is for. That is what they do. Now, please note, let me declare, I am not here for or against either side. We're just having the discussion, dissecting what was transpired, because it aligns quite nicely with the topic that we're discussing, the continuation from yesterday's show. Keith Ard is saying, we have members of parliament who have been there for a very long time, and look at the mess we are facing with the garbage dump. These people are too stubborn and ignorant to help the Cayman people. Okay. Harry is saying, so then why is the government seemingly caught off guard? I'm glad you, in just that little snippet, you picked up that. Communication. And maybe the first time they were hearing that is when the throne speech was being delivered. Very interesting. Communication. Are you seeing where we're going with this now? I'm glad you guys are waking up and seeing sometimes it's, yeah, but you got to do it to keep it together because we have a reputation to protect. We have a reputation to protect, and this is public. This is not what I'm here. It's there. It's there for you to see for yourself. Harry is saying, I mean, they seem like they half agree with the opposition, and that this is a bit of a mess. If he literally said as a sitting minister that he finds it difficult to criticize the opposition response, yes, you're quite right. But you have to go further on, because then he did do a rebuttal to how one's performance, but it ended up pretty much going where it necessarily didn't have to go, because then they started criticizing how the opposition was delivering, which apparently almost went into personal attacks. When in fact, Harry, what you have pointed out is that something was wrong with the system. Two members of elected government, elected into parliament, then it ended up spreading that they were then coming after each other and not realizing it's the system that needs to be fixed. And that is where it becomes almost embarrassing, because there is no need to come after each other individual. There were some allegations, don't pass a certain district. I mean, we don't need to go there. Even if that was taken out of context, I don't know what was implied, but that's where it has gotten. When all is trying to be said, the system is under pressure, and you cannot deliver at pace for the people, and you're getting angry at each other, and people, the electorate who voted you, is making it seem as though you're failing when they don't understand the role. They don't understand the multi-layers that things has to go through in order to be approved. You cannot blame the public. You cannot blame the public. This is the first time anybody has probably ever dissected this and trying to put it into layman's terms of what you're actually seeing unfolding. And if you have to go back to you heard him, the minister said, we have to review standing orders. We have to look at this again. That is not only limited to the parliament. That is also extended into how some of the procurement issues are processed, how quickly certain things become. They even spoke about the strenuous nature of legal drafting. That team is overwhelmed as well. And laws cannot be changed. Public consultations, getting people together and getting public feedback. That all takes a team. Sometimes it requires funding. Sometimes it requires a specific skill set. And a lot of time it needs public participation, which reminds me, there's a survey out right now by WORC appealing, begging to employers to give feedback so that they can make sure they put certain things in place to give locals a chance at securing employment. And it has been extended to the 30th of June. And for what my little sources are telling me is because it has been so poorly responded to. But yet they're supposed to do their job. How are they going to do their job if they're not getting feedback? from employers to say, well, this is why my organization is not interested in the Caymanians that have applied for positions here. They lack the skill set. Beautiful resumes, they don't show up, or they make promises, they work, and I'm just doing a plethora of things. Please don't quote me. Give your feedback so that the government can make policies that is inclusive of the feedback collected from organizations, even if you're a small employer, even if you're a medium, a micro business, this is for you. It is an appeal for employers to give their feedback. So if they're not getting the information and the feedback and they're trying to be inclusive, they're left in a position to make decisions on their own that may not necessarily align with what you're saying is reality. And they were saying as well about creating a welfare state where it appears that certain things are only being advocated for personal political gain and favoritism and all of that. So it actually went personal because for whatever reason, certain things, there are policies that don't exist. There are policies now that has to be written that never was there before. So you're doing it on a whim. And that's no fault of any party, minister, administration. You can't even blame the civil service. It is all collective responsibility. But who ends up feeling the squeeze? You, the people, because then the delays, the positive impacts on your quality of life, your access to healthcare, your access to services, your access to pensions, and all of that sort of stuff is impacted. Whilst it appears as though they're going personal. Harry is saying, from the way he was speaking, I was under the impression that he had not been informed of what the governor wanted to say. It doesn't appear so, Harry. Based on what was shared, it doesn't appear so. And know about or approved because it wasn't approved by cabinet. So yes, you're quite right. It does not appear so. Harry says, also, your parliament is extremely respectful. In our House of Commons, they're shouting at each other. Oh, there's a part, you didn't hear it. But it's not as loud. We had a little bit of that last night. I'm going to be honest with you, but there's nothing. Your parliament, the House of Commons is totally, we only have 19 elected members, but it can get very rowdy. And some of that was displayed last night. David Cameron, when he was prime minister, used to say, stay after he came back from every state visit to an English-speaking country, that they all used to say, we watched the comedy show Prime Ministers. Oh my God. Yeah, it's true. I used to watch that. Yeah, the questions. Well, if the government isn't telling anyone what they're working on and the opposition proposes motions and the government votes no, even though they agree with it, and don't tell anyone why, what do they expect other than the public to think they're incompetent or just doing anything? And that is where education is power. And that's going to probably be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Because if they ever take that and John Public does not understand why, if they continue as a government to remain silent and not give frequent updates without going into the details, that could actually be their demise. Because again, once it's in standing orders and it is approved by the speaker to go on the order paper, the opposition, that's a democracy. They have the right to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the end of today's episode of Sabrina Speaks. And I will implore you to go and watch this on YouTube so that you can see it for yourself. And it goes into part 3 as well, which isn't as long. But they're actually in Parliament now. And based on the order paper that I was privy to, I had a little glimpse. They're going to probably be there till late. So Thank you for joining me. I wish you a very good evening. Looking forward to another informative discussion tomorrow as well. Have a good Thursday morning, everyone, and goodbye. Thank you, Harry. Always good to have you here. Thank you for all of you for commenting. Thank you, Alfred, for your call and your input, trying to dissect it. Andrew as well. Everybody who commented today, I want to let you know that you're appreciated. Until tomorrow, good evening. Stay blessed. Love you lots. Until tomorrow, good night.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, K-Man, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.